hello, and welcome to another SCOUTCAST brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and in what can only be described as one of the least exciting double game weeks in history, it did finish with a bang with Arsenal Crystal Palace and some Palace boys finally getting us some points in their double game week. As always, we are joined by the evergreen Nacho. How is it going, Nacho?
I'm feeling good. Not good physically. Had football this evening, and it was just one of those games where I realised, I've hit that age now where the legs don't move as quick as the mind. So that was a bit of a shock to the system. But in terms of FPL, it's been going good. Like, you know, I kind of said I'm going to finish strong, and we're doing that right now. And I'm getting a bit bored of green arrows, but I guess it'll be fine for the rest of the season.
Mate, you've had non-stop green arrows in the last couple of weeks. I've had non-stop green arrows in the couple of weeks. But we're also joined by Mr. Ever Red, Hibbo. How's it going, Hibbo?
That's harsh, but I think you owed me one. So it felt like probably the worst double game week of all time for me. You used that okay in terms of point scoring, but I got 69. That wasn't a good 69. So I think we can build these things up. We can build up double game weeks. We get excited about our chips. And I think the last few weeks I feel like I've run out of steam a wee bit, but 2 red hours and a bounce, wee bit better about it. But I think we have to focus now on free hit 34, my last chip. And I think we're going to see mass free hit deployment this week. So I think it's the topic of conversation, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there in terms of free hit. It is going to be a massive week for free hits. There were quite a few free hits last week, which was surprising. But this week we are looking at a mass amount of activations for free hit. We also saw an accidental free hit being taken last week by somebody that's going to be in charge of FPL next year. But we won't talk about that for too long. No sorry, Mark. So tonight, though, we are going to be looking at our points. We're going to be looking at the blank game week 34 projections for this week. We're looking at Rob T's stuff there, which is always good value. Then we're going to be looking at all of our free hit drafts at the moment. Now, I know what some of you are thinking out there, but I'm not playing my free hit. If you're not playing your free hit, don't worry, we've got you covered as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about players you should be investing in, even if you're not on free hit as well. So we'll be looking at those. Most of them will be in our free hit teams anyway, but we'll probably make sure that we highlight those players that you need to be investing in if you're not on free hit as well. Then we've got the com team. Callum, I would absolutely love to say that you're beating the com team now, but you're not, unfortunately.
Never.
No, I know. I won't spoil it yet, but they had a very good week as well. So I will talk to you about those in a bit. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end as well. Thank you so much for those people that are listening already. We got loads of people in the chat. FPL Sandman, Derek Knoll saying a red arrow for Hippo. I know. Tell me about it, mate. He is a very red hippo at the moment. BB Defender, boom, catching live first time in weeks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice.
Yeah, it's lovely. Derek Knowles, like I said, Colin Bugler's in there and Historia Films as well. Lovely stuff. So let's have a look at our points from this week. And I'm not going to lie, I had to play my bench boost this week, and Hibbo, you will love the players I put on my bench boost just for you. I think one of your comments in my tweet this week was something like "just grow up." So I was very, very happy with how I organised my bench this week. I was very happy with this bench. I've never done this. I've always made sure my bench is right, and I set this up and I was giggling as I was setting it up. So I had Emi Martinez in goal with 4 points. And I also had Raya on my bench with 7 points, which is lovely. Then I had Saliba, Gvardiol, Konsa and Ruben Diaz at the back. 7, 7, 3 and 9 there from those guys, which is not bad. Wan-Bissaka, who I got in on wildcard just for this fixture. And he didn't even play, wasn't even on the bench. But luckily they did concede, which took the sting out of that a little bit. Then I had Sarr with 3, Rodgers with 7, Eze who got me 10, lovely goal from him. Marmoush captain only with 8. I'm not going to lie, he played more minutes than I was expecting, and he blanked, which I was a little bit disappointed with. Mateta got me 10 with a sumptuous goal against Arsenal, and then Isak with 2, and I also had Saka with 2 on the bench, who was on my bench because I didn't expect him to play much, and Salah on my bench as well because he was a single game week player. So My bench got me 12 points. But, and I did take a picture just for you, Hibbo. I took a picture of what my bench should have been, and it would have been Emi Martinez, Concert, Wan-Bissaka, and Isak on my bench, and they would have got me 9. So there wasn't that much of a difference, to be honest, compared to some of those massive bench boosts last week. So I had 82 points, and I'm up to 413k, which has been the highest I've been all season. I will very much take it. I am very happy. Eze and Mateta's scoring yesterday was actually lovely. So, yeah, I take it. I'm very, very happy. And let's move on to Hibbo. Hibbo, what went wrong this week, my man?
Sad times, sad times. I don't know. I feel a bit depressed, but I'll do it anyway. So 69 points all out. So it's giggity, and it's a red arrow down to 95k. Progress has stalled, and it's safe to say I'm kind of rather unimpressed. I'm a really bad loser. I don't know if he's worked this out. I'm a terrible loser. I absolutely hate losing, and I'm losing right now. So like I made one change, and I was Jacob Murphy, Morgan Rogers, and I rolled a second transfer. So from back to front for the podcast, people had Ryan goal 7, Gary All was 7, Munoz was 6, Saliba was 7, and then in midfield, Rogers was 7, but the rest was just a complete disappointment. I had Sarr, Salah, and Savino with 3 apiece, and Saka with 2. Up top, Mateta, I nearly said Matmush. Matera with 10, Marmoush with 8, and then I fielded a perfectly legitimate bench boost. I didn't do this silly thing. Now I'm not gatekeeping it. If people want to do it, they can do it. I just want to. I want to take the opportunity to say it's stupid for people to do that. You know, I'm not butter. My perfectly legitimate bench boost got me 3 for Areola, 2 for Isaac, 3 for Konsa, and -2 for Dan Burn.
Amazing.
So it was a net 6 points on bench boost. And this is just so absolutely deflating because, like, I rate the bench boost. You know, loads of people will come out after the fact and say, oh, it's an overrated chip. And, you know, you plan your resources to pour them into this week to maximize one chip. It's a silly thing to do, blah, blah. You know, I think every season that I've played bench boost, I've absolutely smashed it. So 6 points is utterly depressing. And I think the only upside is I get the free hit. So see all these players that I don't like, I get to lose them for players that I do like.
For one
but
week.
The really sad thing is I get them back in 35. Yeah. So I'm going to cry again whenever that comes. But
I don't see...
In the past few weeks, and like you're talking about what went wrong. But it's the small things. Do you know, like Kiwior instead of Saliba, Eze instead of Sarr. Like, wee small things would add up in this game week and in the game weeks gone by, which have kind of eroded my score down a wee bit and led to a couple of reds and a bounce. Last week I expected it because it was up against triple captain. This week, safe to say, I didn't expect this score and I didn't expect such a poor BB, but it is what it is. I will say I got the captain call right, I think, in terms of minutes. I think the Saka play was, I know a lot of people did it, was hugely risky in my opinion. And although Marmoush didn't bang, I think going Saka because of the minutes was seriously risky, like, you know.
I tell you what, you were so worried about my bench boost and putting the right players on it. I tell you what's worse. I tell you what's worse than that. Do you know what's worse?
You tell me, go.
Getting a player on your bench that got you -2 points. I mean, surely that's not the optimal way to play, is it?
No, but you know what my favourite part of the week? Do you know what my favourite part of the week was? Adam from Above Average, he fielded one of these fake bench boosts. See, if Adam had put all the right players to the bench, I think he had a couple of players got minus points.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Pedro, Byrne, Estepinian, yeah.
Wow.
But that would have been an amazing bench boost.
Yeah.
Like I think he really must have tricked because he could have had that in a thumbnail and I think he would have broke 20k views or something in one episode. But that's the reason that you play the proper bench boost. But no, hugely depressing. Roll on the game.
We need an intervention here.
I know. I mean, this is him sat in 95k. I was 10 times his rank not that long ago.
95k. 95. I think 95k.
Things have changed. You're too far away from the camera. I think you're down. You're far away from the camera. Something's on here.
It is. Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look at someone's points who is absolutely smashing it at the moment. You can tell that because the player he got in because he couldn't afford Saliba scored last night. So let's have a look at this team then, Nacho.
I'm just a football guy, and when you identify patterns, you see like things like this happening, and it just is one of those sort of things. You see patterns, don't you? So, no, to be honest with you, like the Kivior goal, because I couldn't afford Saliba, is peak FPL, and whoever comes out and is like, "I am a genius" when they talk about their fantasy score, are just chatting rubbish, really, because that is just so fluky for Kivior to get a goal like that, and that goal takes me from a very, very standard week to a really good week. And it is just one of those things, isn't it? You just roll the dice, if you get lucky, happy days. So obviously I've got lots of dice these last few weeks. So 78 points, bench boost, obviously. I'm looking at my bench right now, and I don't even think that is the correct bench boost either. I think Rodgers would play in this 11 as opposed to Isak, but it is what it is. So Raya 7 points, Muno 6, Kivior with a 13, and Vardy with a 7. Then we had Saka. Midfield awful actually. Geez, Saka 2, Sarr 3, Salah 3, Savinho 3. Savinho was just always going to be a disaster. And then Isak 2, Mateta with that unbelievable goal. The way he just floored that defender was unbelievable. And then Marmoush, obviously, captain fail. And my bench boost was Martinez 4, Rodgers 7, Livramento with 0, and Konsa 3. So pretty awful bench boost, like many people, but the Kivior goal literally saving my week. And yeah, up to 54k, happy days. Still sad though, last week using our chips. Like, you kind of build the season to use them all, and then you're like, oh, like, it's done now. So big time. Enjoy this 34.
And while obviously we've looked at all of our points, can I just bring up 3-4 weeks ago, right? Do you remember the player that I said to you two, why are we selling this player? Is it because he doesn't have any double game weeks? Is this going to be somebody that we regret selling? Who was that player?
Brumo.
Yeah, Mbumo.
100%.
And we said we've got to. None of us have him. We said we've got to because he doesn't have double game weeks. And obviously Brentford's fixtures obviously got trickier. 18 points this week. Anybody that had Mbumo on their bench boost, I mean, absolutely brilliant from him. And obviously anybody that kept him. And of course, most people on free hit are looking to have him, looking to get him in, moving on. It's one of those things, isn't it, Nacho, where you've got to play the numbers and you've got to play the fact that they're it's a double game week and they're getting more than 90 minutes. But I suppose when you've got a player like Mbumo who's a midfielder on penalties, can score well, and Brentford score well, it's tough to... He's one of those players that could be an exception, I guess, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I do think it takes, I wouldn't say a brave manager to go against the doubles. I would say this double game week, actually, on reflection, I think we all spoke about it, how the FA Cup semi-final might impact the game time for certain players, the Palace-Arsenal game not being fantastic. But the thing is, we all got forced in this direction because Palace had a double-double. I think if they doubled in game week 33 in isolation, I don't think many people actually would have gone there, but everybody landed on them because of the double-double that they had. So fair play to anyone that went in Buemo. I spoke about doing it myself. I just didn't think it was worth doing it because I just rather have a guy who plays twice, like Savinho.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that was the thing with this double game week, is that because of Crystal Palace's FA Cup games, because of Arsenal obviously being all over the place with Champions League and everything, and City, can always be tricky to call. Hibbo, it wasn't maybe like a double game week like we've had in the past where you can predict a little bit better with the X minutes. It seemed really tough this week, didn't it?
It did seem tough, and I think any double game week, which has Man City, always has that element of toughness because they do have players that we did think was nailed. I think Vardy all we went on there thinking he was nailed, Marmoush, and they turned out to be very good for minutes. Savinho, not so much. But Saka and, in general, the fact that teams are coming off the back of Europe, they're a wee bit battle weary from games in the continent, and the IE has, I think, like what's happening in FPL is kind of a reflection of what's happening in the Premier League, because like Liverpool have the league title sewn up, and there isn't really much motivation from teams to kind of kick on and guarantee places because nearly everything's locked down with the exception of top four. Like Arsenal were more or less secured second place as far as we were concerned, and we thought that Saka wasn't going to start the Ipswich game. He did start the Ipswich game, but then it was nearly like he took a very heavy knock. I think it was for the red card, Leif Davis.
Yeah, Leif Davis. Yeah.
he took a very heavy knock, and then obviously Arteta's thinking, well, I need to protect this player because like the priority now is Champions League and that late stage of the competition. So I would agree. I think it's harder to predict. Even the Palace boys had a bit of rotation. Do you know, in games where they were taking a big heavy defeat, and then it was next, might have been against Newcastle, and then they're taking players off around kind of 60 minutes. So no, it's turned out to be about a damp squab, as you said. Single game week players like Bimo, Wassa, they all went out and smashed it. So maybe we put too much weight in double game weeks, but I'll always play them that way.
Yeah. And maybe this season, it's not about the double game weeks. Maybe it's about the blank game weeks. And of course, we are going into a blank game week now, blank game week 34. Of course, all those players that we have invested in quite so heavily, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Man City and Aston Villa, all blank in game week 34. So if we have a look now at Rob T's projections here, this is how game week 34 is looking. So we have Chelsea versus Everton, and it's looking like Chelsea 1.85 goals to be scored in that game and 42% chance for clean sheet. Not too bad in there. Newcastle and Liverpool are definitely the teams that are expected to score the most goals. 2.85 for Newcastle, 2.90 for Liverpool, with Newcastle having a 46% chance of a clean sheet. Wolves look good against Leicester. Brighton look quite good against West Ham. We've obviously got Southampton playing. Fulham expected to score 1.95 goals. And then we've also got Bournemouth, Man United, who, I'm not going to lie, Bournemouth only scoring 1.95 goals based on projections here. I think it's probably quite low considering what United have been doing recently. And then we've also got Forest, Brentford. Now, we're looking at these stats here, Nacho. If you were on a free hit, even if you weren't on a free hit, straight away you're looking at these projections and these fixtures. Who are you looking at and thinking, oh my goodness, I want them in my team this week?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these numbers here, and one thing's worth noting that I do like the free hit this week because we have got some of the big guns not available to us. So it is quite exciting to go for players that I definitely am not going to own at any other part of the season. So we're looking at teams here from Newcastle have been heavily invested, of course, but I think there are some midfielders out there like a Harvey Barnes that others haven't had. But I look at some of the teams here that we could invest in, and Wolves are quite exciting. People not having Cunha and Strad Larsen as standout picks, so it's a great time to pick up some differentials. But naturally, I think triple Newcastle, triple Liverpool if you can get there, and triple Wolves is kind of the standout for me right now in terms of where to invest from an attacking perspective. Because when I think about it from a free hit, I want the guys who score goals, and I think I can confidently say that the opposition that they're playing are so damn bad right now that I just think goals are going to happen regardless of the performance. Because I just think Leicester are one of the worst teams I've ever seen in this league recently. And Liverpool having the opportunity to win the league against Spurs, it's a great game. And it's just now all about identifying who outside of those key players can we take the risk on that also offers great minutes. And I'm sure we'll cover off some of those names. But Newcastle, Wolves, Liverpool, for me, are the real standout ones. Weirdly, I'm not as bullish about Fulham than others.
I was going to ask, actually, that kind of leads in quite nicely there with what I was going to ask Hibbo, because I was going to say, looking at that, I agree with Nacho. I think Newcastle, Wolves, Liverpool kind of really stand out there. Interesting you didn't mention Brighton, considering a little bit higher there, but I think Brighton are very, very up and down in terms of what you can expect from them. Is there anybody here, though, Hibbo, that you're looking at their projections and thinking, I'm surprised it isn't higher or lower?
No, it feels kind of intuitively, it feels about right. And like I think how I look at the free hit, I always think the free hit's got a very kind of daily fantasy feel to it. So like essentially we want to attack the fixtures, and
Stack.
I think the best way, I think stack, and I think the best way to do that is to look at data like this that focuses on a single the game week in front of us. So in terms of projected goals and clean sheet odds, and like we have a cluster of teams. Liverpool, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Fulham, Wolves, Chelsea here, projected for over 1.85 goals. And then the same on the defensive side of the ball, Newcastle, Chelsea, Wolves, all rated as the best defences with over 40% clean sheet prospects, with Liverpool and Fulham kind of following. So I do definitely think, to kind of go on to Nacho's point, firstly, money isn't any object. We were putting our teams together, and there's spare cash and teams. Like I think essentially this week you can afford whoever you want. But I think stacking 3 Liverpool, 3 Newcastle, I think 3 Wolves, I'm not keen on Brighton because of the potential for rotation. You know, they can't come out, they can't score well, but I do kind of think Herzler can pull a surprise every now and again. I feel different than Nacho. I do like Fulham, and I do think Fulham have some really good picks. I think Leno and goals stand out as keeper. I think Sessegnon is looking very attractive as an option right now, and I think Raul Jimenez, because they have some kind of injury worries. I think Muniz is out injured this week, on the basis of that, we're going to fancy Jimenez to start against Southampton, and I think he could overplay the differential aspect of the free hit, because we look at these teams and we kind of think, oh, we can go out and grab everybody's in free hit this week. Everybody's in free hit. So like, even if you think this week, oh, I can grab this player and his effective ownership is low now, even the kind of boys that are on down the scale in terms of ownership, they're going to end up about 50, 60% ownership. That's what I think anyway. I think you'll be surprised at what the O's are by the time live FPL cuts live after the deadline on Saturday. But to that respect, I think you kind of have to go a wee bit outside the box. And I do think the Fulham picks against Southampton could be it.
Yeah.
You know, Jimenez, Sessegnon, guys of that kind of ilk that could have the potential to score big against like a very, very poor side. And I think it's very much target the weak opposition.
On Fulham, by the way, obviously you mentioned Jimenez there. He's come out, Silva's come out and said Muniz isn't playing. So Muniz definitely won't be playing in that game. So obviously that makes Jimenez, a bit more of an option in terms of minutes. He still won't get the 90, you wouldn't have thought, because, he's probably about Hibbo's age, but he's going to be on he's going to be on penalties. And obviously he's playing against Southampton. You've mentioned Sessegnon a few times there. If people don't know already, Sessegnon's been playing out of position. So he's a defender in the game, but he's been playing right wing. And if you follow Charlie, FPL Meerkat, brilliant account to follow, right wingers against Southampton get joy pretty much every week. So Sessegnon seems like a really good pick in this team. Now, I am looking though, and I found it really, really interesting that both of you said this. Both of you said I would have a triple up from Newcastle, Wolves and Newcastle. Now, I'm not going to lie, boys. I'm looking at some of these and I'm wondering who your triple up's going to be, because I think a double's very, very easy to do, but picking that third player is really not easy. So, Nacho, I'm going to start with you and I'm going to ask you about Liverpool first, because they're projected to get the most goals, so 2.90. I know that's only just a little bit more than Newcastle, so it's not significant, but they're there anyway. So if you were to pick your three Liverpool, obviously Salah's going to be in there. Who's your other two?
Yeah, this is the big question here, because I think Liverpool right now, I would confidently, personally, be happy to have a defensive coverage and two attackers. Obviously, Mo Salah is locked. But I'm going to be honest, I think the only pick you can really go for is going to be Luis Diaz. I don't think Gakpo has showed enough minutes. I don't really know if Jota is a lock enough for us to go there. And I'm looking at Luis Diaz's minutes, and I actually give him credit. His minutes long-term have actually been fantastic. The only time he hasn't played 80 or more has been game week 31, where he came on for the last 35 minutes, and game week 25. Outside of that, we're looking at 80 plus, sometimes 90 minutes. And when he does play, his underlying numbers are actually really, really good. And when we talk about free hits and opportunities to go a bit different, I do think a lot of managers will be a bit scared to go for the double Liverpool double up, and will possibly avoid Luis Diaz. But I do feel like he is a fantastic pick, and I probably would put him ahead of a third forward, like a Raul Jimenez myself, just because midfielders obviously just get that additional bit for clean sheet and goal. Defensive, though, I would need a little bit of confidence from Arne Slot to go for Trent. Now, you could just go there and hope for it, and he will definitely get minutes. But if he comes on for the last 30 minutes, you really are going to kick yourself, because I don't think that is justifiable enough. So would I go Alisson? No, I wouldn't go Alisson myself. I think there are other teams that offer value. So if I had to go, there'd be Trent, Diaz, Salah, with the caveat I would need some confidence from Slot to go for Trent.
So this is the thing though. So because obviously, like, you're right in saying you want to obviously load up on these Liverpool boys. If you don't have 100% certainty that Trent plays, because you can't play him, because like you said, he's going to get some minutes. So it's not like you can play him and then have a good bench option to come on. Who's your third asset? Is it Trent or nothing if you're not going Alisson?
No, I do. I do think Van Dijk is a consideration. Obviously, always a threat from set pieces. I think we just got to ask ourselves, like, who does it displace in the defense? Because if we're deeming Newcastle defensive 1, we're saying Wolves 1, and we're saying possibly Fulham 1, then you only got one other spot, whether it be the goalkeeper or the third defender. But if we don't want to double up on a team and you want to spread yourself, then I do think Van Dijk, if you're scared of Trent, is not a bad alternative either, just for the goal threat as well that we've seen.
No, that's fair. And I mean, Hibbo, Newcastle, 2.85. There's the projected to be the second highest scorers this week. But maybe more importantly than that, they're also projected to have the biggest chance of a clean sheet this week as well, playing at home against a poor Ipswich side that have been relegated now. Now, I'm looking at that, and I think a lot of people would instantly go for a defender, one of Barnes or Murphy, and then go Isak. Is there a case for going maybe double defence in this, or would you be going with a Harvey or a Murphy, which there's no guarantee they start if he's going to try and give Gordon some minutes?
Well, I think automatically, if I look at the projected goals, I think I want double attack. Now, how feasible double attack is a different kind of question, because I think you've hit the nail in the head. There's a potential for rotation and the kind of second attacking slot. Like, we can just assume that Isak's completely locked. But then you've got Murphy, who's been kind of playing around 70 minutes. You've got Gordon, who hasn't really been on the frame because he hasn't been fit. You've got Barnes, who's been firing. So like, he's maybe not the worst punt of all, but could Barnes's re-enter, or could Gordon's re-entry in the team start to impact the minutes of the two players? And maybe if one of them starts and one of them goes to the bench, then by virtue of that, Barnes comes off early for Murphy. That's possible. Double defence is possible. Like, you're looking, and I think Trippier in recent weeks is kind of, because he does have a wee bit of dead balls and stuff like that in terms of attacking threat, he's kind of pushed himself to the front of the queue in terms of options. And I think this week, given the fact that we aren't kind of bogged down by budget, I think he's the best pick in their defence. But there's other ways in. Like, you could go Schär, because we're not limited by money, and you could go Trippier Schär as like a double defence. And I don't think that's the worst pick of the lot, and in addition to Isak, if you're going to go triple up. So I think it just kind of depends on risk appetite. What do you want to do in terms of your rank towards the end of the season? Do you really want to go for it as much as you possibly can? The safest play is probably the double defence. The more aggressive plays, they attack one, or they target one of the attackers, but it's which one you go for. I think at the minute, if you were trying to put your name in one, it would be Barnes, but there's something about me, it's drawing me to Gordon. Wow. I know he hasn't had great minutes recently, but every time I've owned Gordon, he's been a great asset. But I think loads of these depend. I think it depends on your third Liverpool option. I think if we got word going into the game week from Slot that Trent's been firing, he's going to be training. Look, he's back in contention type thing. I'd be kind of drawn to Trent as well.
Less chance for clean sheet, I feel, though. I feel like Spurs are more likely to score. Out of all these home teams, like Newcastle at home, Wolves at home against Ipswich, Leicester, even Fulham playing Southampton, I feel like they're more likely to keep a clean sheet than Liverpool. But then Trent's got way more upside, obviously.
He's got way more upside, and I just think from a Premier League sense, I think Spurs' season's over. Yeah. I think Postecoglou's gone either way, it sounds like.
Yeah, sounds like
it seems as if it sounds like he's just going to go no matter what happens now towards the end of the season. But this is, it's kind of funny because he came out and said that in the second season he won the trophy, and now he's in the semi-final against Bodo Glimt in the Europa League. So I think all their focus goes on that, and I think he's going to protect the squad to a certain extent against Liverpool. Liverpool have the tails up because they can go out and win the league title. I think in the face here, it's strange to see Liverpool projected for nearly 3 goals against Spurs. But I think knowing what we know about Spurs, how defensively bad they are, how the focus has gone in the Premier League, I do fancy a big one for Liverpool. And that's kind of part of what makes me want. We've seen Trent come off the bench. They scored in the last game too. And I don't have this belief that Bradley's now going to take over and Trent's going to kind of fade on the background as the season kind of comes to an end. Like, I think when Trent's fit, he comes back in. So there obviously is going to be that risk. But I think that's kind of watch and wait press conferences from now until the deadline to see if there's any clue at all. I'd like to go there with Trent.
Yeah, I mean, a question I didn't think I'd ask this season, Nacho. Who would be your Wolves triple up? I'm assuming a certain future Man United player will be in there.
Oh yeah, I can't believe this, but it would be a good signing. It would be a good signing, but it would kind of match up the craziness that Man United have, really. But I think the Wolves one's quite clear, and I think it's very much a case of you either love it or don't. In the sense of, I think you can literally only go Ait-Nouri, Cunha, and Strand Larsen, and because there are so many good forwards in the game right now. I mean, we haven't even discussed opportunities to go for people like a Danny Welbeck in that Brighton team who were projected to score 2 goals. Evan Nielsen at home against Man United, a pick. Even someone like a Chris Woods. So I think for you to really go all in on Wolves with Strand Larsen and Cunha, I love it. I like the bravery, but I personally don't feel like it's necessary. So I think you go for one forward, and even though we've spoken about triple Wolves, which is the ideal, I think double up of Ait-Nouri and probably just going for what we say the baller metric, which we spoke about, is going to be Cunha. And he's kind of in the same bracket as Eze, isn't he, in that sense? So, look, if Cunha has any sort of chance of being benched with Bellegarde, then I think people will naturally default to Strand Larsen. Otherwise, I think everyone's going to flock to Cunha. So I think double Wolves is probably the safe play.
And worth mentioning as well, I've been trying to find out an update, but I can't seem to find it. Sarr went off in the warm-up against United, and obviously Bentley played. So I've got no idea. I've been looking at it, and he went off with a bit of a knee injury, and we don't really have an update on him yet. So keep an eye out on that as well to see whether Sarr plays for Wolves. Hibbo, looking at the other teams then, because we won't go on it too long. We want to look at our drafts. We've got Chelsea, we've got Brighton, we've got Fulham, we've got Bournemouth, and then we've also got the Nottingham Forest and Brentford fixture there as well. Any others there that you're thinking, well, hang on, we do have to think about some of these players as well? Because, of course, you could load up on Newcastle, Wolves and Liverpool, but that only fills 9 of your team.
Kind of intuitively, I feel like swerving the Brentford fixture.
Yeah.
You know, I know they've been doing well, but like away to Forest isn't the easiest fixture in the world. And, you know, for me, picking Bumo in that circumstance kind of feels like a wee bit of fear, and it feels like chasing last week's points. I think Palmer feels like a lock for me. At home to Everton. Aye, without a doubt. I think at home to Everton, I think he just feels like a good asset. I know he's kind of had his ups and downs in terms of... Do you know what? Here's the thing. People are jumping cock a hook over Bumo away to Nottingham Forest, but then they have some doubts about Palmer. I don't really get that, because I think Palmer's got the better fixture at home to Everton, and I think he's a better asset anyway. So I think for me, he's very much in the frame as the second best asset. But who were the other teams that you mentioned there? Sorry.
Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth.
Wouldn't touch. I'm not really interested in touching Brighton personally myself. Bournemouth, Kluivert is in the mix.
Yeah.
Again, I know he's been a player that's been very much on the radar in FPL terms this season, because he's looked good from open play, but he's obviously got sets. He's obviously got penalties. He's in the mix. But I do think as well, like I think Fulham, like we've touched on Fulham at the start of the pod, I have Jimenez, and we'll come on that when we go to bus teams. I have Jimenez at the minute as like a third striker. And I really do like that Southampton fixture, so I want to... Like I kind of nearly feel as if I want to have as many players as I can possible in that game. You know, and we've already touched on like Leno's obviously a good option. Sessegnon, you know, obviously is. But I think for me, that's really where it is. Do you not have Palmer?
Well, I was just about to ask you this. So I don't have Palmer in my team. And I was just going to ask you there, you said obviously Palmer feels like a lock in your team. If you had to choose now, if you could only fit one of Palmer or a second Liverpool mid in, who would you have in? So if it's Diaz, for instance, would you rather have Palmer or Diaz?
But nobody has that decision to make. Why do you have to make that decision?
Because I don't have Palmer. So what I'm asking is, obviously I'm deciding that I think a Newcastle mid, a second Liverpool mid, or whatever, are more important than Palmer.
Could be. They could be, but I like. Are you really blocked off from doing that? That doesn't really kind of feel like that to
No,
me.
I'm not blocked off. I'm making the choice. I've still got like 5 mil in the bank, but I'm just looking at it and thinking, I'm seeing it. I get it. He's a midfielder. He's on penalties. He takes an awful lot of shots, but he just hasn't been doing it recently, has he? I can't remember. I mean, Nacho will probably know the actual numbers, but it's been however many hours since he's even scored a goal. And I'm looking at it and thinking, if we weren't on free hit, I mean, we were talking last week saying we're not going to own Palmer again this season. And now it's free hit, and because obviously he's on penalties and he's high up in the projections because he's a mid on penalties. And he's played an Everton team that don't seem to give up a lot of goals. So I get it, because people are saying, I don't want to own Iwobi, I want to own Palmer, or whatever the discussion is. But I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't get why he's a nailed on pick, personally. I'm saying this, he's going to then score 2 pens, but...
Yeah.
Clap this. We should definitely clap
this.
I
know.
What point of the video was this?
Being a Chelsea fan, like I obviously think Palmer has been poor recently, snatching. He's not playing. We're drifting him out into almost like KDB roles in like half spaces on the left hand side to be a bit more creative for us. So I think he is not the sort of Cole Palmer that we saw in the first half of the season and last year. And I think it's harder to predict where the goals are coming from in this Chelsea team. However, 2 words: Michael Keane. Tarkowski injured, Michael Keane will probably play. There's going to be chances, regardless. So I do think Cole Palmer will have opportunities. And I think the big thing we need to remember is we want to get as many penalty takers as possible in this team. And and he just ticks one of those boxes with guaranteed game time. Would I be surprised if he blanks? No. But I think he's good enough to go in with the other midfielders that we're considering.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because Everton, I swear every week we keep going, oh yeah, no, Everton are actually doing quite well under Moyes, and they can keep clean sheets, and they don't concede an awful lot of goals. I'm just interested, Hibbo, why is it just because of, like I said, historically on penalties, scores well? Is it just that, or is it, he just seems a lot because he's Palmer?
Yeah, but those 2 things kind of go hand in hand for me.
No,
no, but they do. They do. Like, there's a reason why he's a 10 million pick. Because like from open play, he can score, he can assist, he does have pens, he does have big scores in the locker, and like, it hasn't been good recently. But like, say teams at the minute which maybe have Bumo, and all right, like arguably you could say, oh, he's on form, he's broke 200 points. Like, I don't really care about any of that, because I'm just focusing solely on this week, and like I can't even really consider form too much, because I'm just thinking I want to just pick the best side I can pick this week, and like, based on the budget that I have available, Palmer just feels like such a lock at home to Everton. Like he's not even really coming into my thinking to go without him, and I don't really think we're restricted. This is what I tried to say at the start of the show. I think in terms of budget, and you've said like you've had millions in your bench, we're not restricted in the picks that we can make in any way, shape, or form. Like, I can still technically have the double Liverpool mid, a Newcastle mid who I don't know if I'm going to go with, and still have Palmer. Like the trade-off for me is I don't have Bumo. So like, if I put my 2 hands out and say these are the 2 picks, which one do I want this week? For me, I'm always going to go for Palmer over Bumo, I think, this week.
That's what I was asking earlier, is obviously most people are playing 3 strikers, so you're only picking 4 midfielders you're going to play in your team. And like you just said, if you're going to go with double Liverpool, you've only got 2 positions there, and one of them's maybe going to be a Newcastle mid. So is Palmer over Mbumo the way this week? I mean, Forest defence hasn't been good. It has not been good recently. Last 5-6 games, they're one of the worst. I think they're 16th or 17th for XGC, whereas Everton are obviously a bit higher than that. It's just, I think it's interesting that that he's nailed on for you. But I mean, Nacho, you obviously watch him every week. You've just said Palmer's not been as good recently, and I am very much an advocate for good fixtures make good form. But he's had good fixtures as well, hasn't he? It's not like his fixtures have been poor recently. But is this just going to be one of those weeks where probably your last time owning Palmer this year, and this is the week to do it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm viewing it. I think when I look at the midfielders available to us, I just think I naturally default to Cole Palmer. I have built teams without him in it, but I just think to myself, would I rather have Cole Palmer or maybe a 65, 70-minute Newcastle midfielder? And I always just default back to Cole Palmer. I'm not saying I would have one or the other. I would have both. But yeah, I think exactly that. It's the last time to call Cole Palmer this season, and yeah, I think he's still a good pick, but he's not fantastic. He's not as good as he should be. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. No. And no doubt, Neto or Madueke will be the top goal scorer.
you got a last word on it, Hibbo, before we look at some free hit teams?
None. Just go straight to free hit teams.
Okay, cool. Right. So let's have a look at some free hit teams. Now, before we do look at these, there's a caveat for this that obviously you see it on the timeline all the time and you see it in chats all the time as well. People are getting very, very upset by the fact that there's a lot of people on free hit. It's a blank game week. We have 3 or 4 teams that have beautiful fixtures. So, of course, a lot of these free hit teams are starting to look very, very similar. It's going to happen, just like all game week 1 teams all start to look very, very similar because there are obvious picks. So I would say at least 7 picks are pretty much set because you can't really go without those players. So a lot of these free hits are obviously very similar, but it's worth having a look at them and seeing about our thought processes and seeing what might change as the days goes on. So this is my free hit team as it stands. Now already, I posted this at about 12 o'clock and I'm already thinking I'm going to make changes to this, but there you go. So at the moment, I've got Leno in goal. I got Trippier, Ait-Nouri and Cucurella at the back. Then I've got Barnes and Mbumo. No Palmer. Luis Diaz, Mo Salah and Cliver in the middle with Isak and Cunha up front. Then I got Sessegnon, Wood and Dunk on the bench with Verbruggen as well. I'm not that bothered about the bench, to be perfectly honest. So I'm fairly happy with this team. The locks in this team for me are Trippier, Ait-Nouri, Luis Diaz, Salah, Isak and Cunha. So those are pretty much locked. Sessegnon's locked as well because he'll either be on my bench or he'll be playing. So that's 7 players there that are pretty much locked. The players I've got to think about now, really, are whether I do go Leno in goal, whether I do go Cucurella, or whether I play Sessegnon, or whether I go double Newcastle defence and get Trippier and Livramento. I got Barnes there that could change. I could put Palmer in. I'm just not feeling it personally. And it's whether I play 3 up top, because obviously forwards have just been ridiculous for bonus. So whether I do go, I don't really fancy Wood. So I think it could be Evan Nielsen or Jimenez based on the news today. So I'm looking at this and thinking the majority of this is locked, but for the next kind of 48 hours, it's just who do I change in terms of those little changes. Cucurella's, I think, is an interesting one because he seems to be Chelsea's best goal scorer this year. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. But obviously, in terms of Everton playing away from home, scoring goals, it doesn't happen a lot. So having one of their defenders doesn't seem that bad, but I don't like Chelsea that much. Cliver, I've thought about Evan Nielsen, but Clivert's on pens. United are awful. Do I expect us to concede a couple of goals? Probably. So apart from that, I mean, have you got any thoughts on some of those picks that I've made, considering the fact we're also going to be looking at yours soon? So, Nacho, if I start with you, my man, and then we can move on to yours after.
Yeah, so I think the only one that I'll touch on is Cucurella, because I think the rest we kind of have done so. Yep. And it is worth noting, like, he is a man possessed at times. Like, we do actually flood him into the box. He makes his underlapping runs, gets into great positions, and we've seen him actually score a fair few goals recently. I believe he had 1 and then 1 disallowed also in our Conference League game. So I think he's a great pick. I naturally, as a Chelsea fan, am a little bit worried about us defensively. I still think we are just we switch off a lot and we do concede really, really bad goals. But if I was saying to you right now about a few players who were going to get double-digit returns as defenders, I really would put Cucurella in that top 5 because I honestly think he is one of the best up there with one of those goal-scoring defenders, what we've seen recently, and I expect us to dominate possession at times as well. So yeah, I like Cucurella as a pick. I think he's a great pick. And if he comes in on that lunchtime kickoff, it's going to be delicious, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. One thing I will say as well, the Forest game, Forest-Brentford, isn't until Thursday, is it? So it's having someone in that game is actually quite nice because you've got to wait a long time. But it's not a reason to pick someone. But if you're thinking about fun factor, having someone playing in that Thursday game is quite nice. Any thoughts on this one, Hibbo?
The danger with everybody providing thoughts about free hit is that we just I turn your team into my team.
Yeah,
Do you know that's what happens. What I would say is, I think if you were going to kind of go super sexy attacking, I like Sessegnon on there ahead of Cucurella.
Yeah.
Because at the minute, effectively, you don't have any full attack against Southampton. And I think that's potentially going to be one of the best fixtures. And you could say, oh, well, he's not an attacker, but he is at the minute. And he's also got that clean sheet potential. So he feels like a big kind of ceiling pick. Obviously, I like Jimenez because, again, you're getting on that fixture. Then it's a kind of palm decision for you. So, like, I do agree with how you opened as we went on this final section on the fact that the template is strong, but the template's strong for a reason. Yeah. And there's going to be very slight variations on, well, who have you gone for triple Newcastle? Have you managed to shoehorn in triple Liverpool? How many Wolves do you have? Are you starting much Fulham? And I think apart from that, most of it's locked. But it's a nice team. I like it.
Thank you very much.
I think let's have consideration as Europa League.
Yeah.
And I think like Kluivert against United, like United's eyes in Europa League now too. Do you know, same as Spurs.
It is that I do expect Bruno to play that. I expect him to play a few more players than he did against Wolves because he needs some kind of momentum. So I do feel like Bruno could play, but they're a better team than we are. So I expect us to lose that game. And obviously we lost the game against Wolves. So, and Kluivert, we've seen him on pens, he can do damage. But let's have a look at the players' free hit team that is on an absolute roll with Green Arrows at the moment. He does have Palmer. Nacho, talk us through this team.
Oh, Son.
Yes.
No, Son's not there.
Well, I'm conscious that I mentioned earlier about not being bullish on Fulham. And lo and behold, I have double Fulham in my team. So that feels like one that I need to reflect after this Scoutcast, because I do feel like maybe I haven't actually thought about that enough. So I'll just quickly read through the team. I'll just give my thoughts for those obviously listening on the podcast. So we've got the 11 is Leno, a back three of Livramento, Aït-Nouri, Sessegnon, 5 of Diaz and Buemo, Salah, Barnes, Palmer, and then Isak and Cunha up top. Bench, Sanchez, Raul Jimenez, Trent, and Kirkez. So again, in terms of a lock for me, actually in the starting 11, I don't see how I don't go without Aït-Nouri, a Newcastle defender. I'm still happy with Livramento myself. I think going for Trippier is just more of like a differential sort of pick, like just going for the alternative out there. Salah's obviously a lock. I personally have got Cole Palmer as a lock in my team. I don't really see how I go without him. And then Isak and Cunha up front. So I think really the big decision for me is understanding whether Brentford is actually a good fixture or whether we're just using recency bias of what happened. The reason why Mbeumo's in my team is because 12 days rest for Brentford, Nottingham Forest playing on the Sunday with their FA Cup semi-final, and there's no doubt Forest are obviously competing for Champions League places, but I do like the idea of 12 days rest for Brentford. I just think that naturally is going to be a temptation for a player like Mbeumo. And I right now I feel compelled to go for the double Liverpool attack. I think it is where I want to hedge myself on that sense. Can't be compelled enough to go for Trent right now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the team. The more I think about it, I do like the Cucurella shout. I think double Fulham defence. I don't know what it is about it. I just feel like Southampton will score. So I don't know if I'll end up on that. But look, the teams are all very similar. Barnes is another one that I could easily get put off by that very quickly.
Yeah. No, lovely team. I like it. You're both making me think about Palmer more than I want to, which I don't like. But let's have a look at Hibbo's team. Shock horror, Cole Palmer in there, and Raul Jimenez in there as well, Hibbo.
It's no big surprise. Hey, so just to go through the team from back to front. So I've obviously got Leno in goal, and then in defence, I have to caveat as like this is how the team is now at present. And defence, I've got Aït-Nouri, who feels very much like a lock for me. I've got Trippier, who feels very much like a lock for me, and I've got Trent. Now, such is the money that we have in the team that, similar to Nacho, I could just drop Trent down to the bench and play Sessegnon. Do you know, like I don't have to take Trent out of me 15 altogether because we're not squashed for cash in any kind of way, shape, or form. I would like to have an excuse to play Trent because he does feel like a player that could be potentially differential this week. But I've spoke a lot about Sessegnon so far in the pod, and I do think that he could be one of these kind of big hitting differentials this week. Midfield, the two Liverpool boys feel completely locked. I do think that Salah's going to be my captain, obviously, and then Luis Diaz. He's been kind of red hot in terms of form and underlying numbers and actual returns this year. So I don't really feel like there's any reason for me to back against that when we're looking at the like a Rob T's data. It's basically suggesting, look, we fancy Liverpool to score nearly 3 goals. Feels wise. They have double attack in that fixture. Palmer, I do get concerns about his form. But as I say, like I can only focus on this week. Like there's no point in me looking back the last 6 weeks and saying, oh, he hasn't been performing very well. I'm not going to pick him on the basis of that. I'm going to pick him on the basis of what I think's a good fixture. What I do think is like, you know what, he's a kind of player where if I talk about Palmer, I see him very much in the kind of 200 point plus category every season. Mm-hmm. He's that kind of level in terms of an elite option. And I think when you add Pens and all that to the mix, I can't really go without. Gordon feels like a risky one for me, and he's one that I think could change before the weekend. Do you know, he hasn't really had the minutes recently. There's obviously going to be a bit of concern with that. Does he come back in? Does he not come back in? So he's one that could go cold on, I think, very fast. I think up top, Isaac and Cunha are complete locks. Like, yeah. You know, Cunha's probably going to be in every free hit team that you're going to see on the internet come game lock on Saturday. Jimenez has that wee bit of spice. And like if I was comparing like my team to Nacho's team, he's basically gone Bimbo as a midfielder and played a 5, but he has Jimenez on the bench. Now, like arguably you could say Bimbo's got a better chance of minutes. He's going in fresher. So I do take that point of view, and these are things that I'll think about from now until Saturday, but I just kind of think the Southampton fixture, you know, could we see Fulham go out and bang 4 or 5 goals against them? And, you know, what kind of ownerships Jimenez going to be in? I want to take a risk. I do think a lot of managers will go with Bimbo. And I just want to go a wee bit different because, like, the players that managers going on this week without a free hit will probably be looking to buy Bimbo, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, he's a nice player to buy from now until the end of the season. Yeah. I think in ownership terms, he's going to go on pretty high this week. And I don't mind backing against him away to Forest. If it means like I'm going to back a striker who we think's going to be on Pens away at Southampton.
He is on Pens. Yep. Definitely on Pens.
70 minutes might be enough. Do you know what I mean? But that's it for me. I've gone for Bentley. Actually, funnily enough, you talked about a third Wolves player. Yeah. I've gone for Bentley, and I think Sa's probably going to miss out this weekend.
Yeah,
by all accounts.
It's funny. I mean, it feels like next week we're going to be going, why didn't we just all get triple Fulham? Like they played against the worst team in the league. Why didn't we all just get them? Like Iwobi's going to be getting 2 goals and assists, isn't he?
Iwobi's the one. Iwobi's the one.
It's Adama Traore for you, isn't it, Nacho? He's your man.
Oh man, that guy. Honestly, put oil on them arms.
There we go. Flashback to the beginning of the season.
Look, what do you think about this team? What would these change? Just because I'm interested in opinions, because I'm not unsure myself. Like just between you and me, I haven't activated my free hit.
Gordon's the big one, and Trent, isn't it? Because a lot of people in the chat are saying why wouldn't Trent play? But obviously there's been a bit of a turnaround with could he now sign again and all this kind of stuff. But before it was Bradley's, wasn't it? But I think if Trent was 100% to play, obviously he's got the upside there. But I expect Spurs to score. That's the thing for me, I think. Whereas I'm looking at the other ones, even Sessegnon, like Southampton could not score it. He's playing right wing against the worst team in the league. I think it's close between them because of Trent's minutes and the fact I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet. But again, I could be completely wrong there.
I can't get behind Gordon, but like I love it if your gut feelings tell you to go Gordon, then obviously go there. But I personally just can't go for a player until I've seen him actually start previously. Like you just basically are hedging on him getting his start against Ipswich. And my question would be, has Barnes or Murphy done anything to be justified not being selected, basically? Because I think we all know eventually Gordon will come back into this team. Is it going to be that Ipswich game though? You just don't know. And I love it though. If you want to go for the punt, mate, like we could be absolutely lapping it up in a week's time.
Be good for Isak if Gordon plays.
Yes.
Let's have a look at the Com team then. And I'm not going to lie, it's been a while since the Com team has dreaded us talking about them on the stream because they are doing very, very well. They played their bench boost chip in game week 33. They scored 87 points which was a 20k green from 57k to 37k. They sold Livramento and got Canate in. Fair play.
Wow.
So they had Raya, Gvardiol, and Saliba all got them 7 points. Munoz got them 6. Salah with 3, Saka with 2, Eze with 10, Rodgers with 7, Isak with 2, Mateta with 10, and then Marmoush captain with 8. And they had Martinez, Konsa, Murphy, and Canate on the bench with 9. Fair play. 32k. I mean, Nacho. I mean, Hibbo's just only ever getting red arrows now, so it's all on you to try and beat the com team, mate. I told them a couple of weeks ago, I said both of you were going to beat them. So I am still holding my flag for the Scoutcast boys. But the com team has thrashed everybody on the Scoutcast for the last couple of years. So fingers crossed we do all right to finish the season. Exactly. Right. Let's have a bit of a Q&A. So anybody in the chat, I think we peaked about 530 people in the chat, by the way. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion we've been having. And please drop us a like as well, because it tells everybody else at Scout that we're the big dogs. So make sure you drop us a like, please. But yeah, chuck us in some questions. We'll answer as many as possible in the last 5 minutes. The chat's been really, really busy tonight as well. So definitely chuck some questions in for us. I know a few have come up. Somebody, and I'm so sorry because I can't go back that far, asked earlier about what my target rank is this season. I think Nacho said it a couple of weeks ago about getting top 300k would be quite a good finish. I think that's probably about right. I think top 300k, 250k, I think would be quite good, because considering this is my last chip usage this week, and then I'm going to struggle because people have a lot of chips. Well, not a lot of chips, but people might have some chips left to finish. So if I finish anywhere close to 250, I think that's respectable considering my season, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great finish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll take it, won't we? If you'd have offered me that at the beginning of the season, I would have spat on you, I think. But yeah, I'll take it now, unfortunately. Don't worry, Hibbo, I'd spit on you no matter what, mate. Right, let's... Mario Rodriguez says, do I go Mbumo or Wood on my free hit? What do you think, Nacho?
I think I prefer Mbumo just because FA Cup semi-final, Wood could easily come off around the 77th minute for Awoni. Whatever. So I prefer Mbumo myself. Christ, I butchered that.
Jackaloski says, is there no love for Strand Larson, Hibbo?
Like, I mean, you could do Strand Larson. Do you know, like, if you look at my team and I've gone like Isak Cunha, and I feel like they're very much locks. You could go Strand Larson and go like a front three. I don't really see a problem with that. The only issue I think is, I suppose, the old theory of like too many eggs in one basket. And what if the Wolves game's a wee bit of a damp squab? What if they don't come out and blow Leicester away? You haven't really kind of maybe split your risk. I don't hate it, if I'm being completely honest. I think it would be one nice way to kind of differentiate your team from, I think, the pack, really.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Paul K says, do you see a time when we will be tuning in to a view on a women's fantasy league and debating whether we should go for Russo of Arsenal or Sam Kerr of Chelsea, Nacho?
I mean, it'd be quality if it does happen. Watching Chelsea played yesterday on BBC Three, actually, and won 4-0, I believe. But it'd be great. It'd be great in the future, obviously. It's just all about popularity, isn't it? Unfortunately, with games in that. But we've seen some awesome alternative games be released. It'd be great for them to do that, because I think there would be an appeal to some capacity for sure. And it's only growing the game, isn't it? We need another big Euros for England, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and fantasy is a great way to get people into watching the sport as well. So it would be quite fun. Although there is a fantasy league, isn't there, obviously? But I suppose it's whether it's big enough, like you said. Who was it I saw one there? Sean P. Casey says, if you were to triple captain this week, who would you do, Hibbo? If you were trying to chase, who would you triple captain, do you think? Salah's a bit boring. I'm going to ban Salah. So who would be your choice?
Well, if you're trying to chase, I think you go up Isak at home to Ipswich.
Do you?
I think you don't. Oh, I. Like, if you're telling me you're banning Saka, am I not allowed to pick, or Salah? I'm not allowed to pick Salah.
No.
No, well, if you're not allowing me to pick Salah, I would go for Isak.
Interesting. I would have gone Cunha for first. I'm not sure why, but Isak's nice. We had one more interesting one in there as well. I can't see it now. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Colm Bugler says, will FPL Fest include a great FPL bake-off this year? I'm hoping so. Me versus Delia. I tell you what, boys, I did my brownies last weekend. They were so good. You would have loved them. I'll send some to you in the post, all right? You would have loved them. Yes, I bake. I'm a man of the people. Of course I bake.
The insult in his voice. The insult in his voice.
Of course I bake. They were moist and they were lovely. Thank you very much.
Do you have an apron?
No, I don't need an apron. I don't make a mess. Anyway, that was a nice way to end it, wasn't it? Cheers, everybody in the chat, and thank you 500 odd people for joining us this evening. Thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And also, thank you so much for the people listening on the pod or people watching the stream after the fact as well. We do appreciate each and every one of you. Hibbo, thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm not going to lie, I've got more things crossed than you can believe that you're going to get a green arrow next week. I can feel it.
What all do you have crossed?
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely everything.
My brownies, yeah. Everything's crossed.
I'm hoping for the sake of the stream next week, because I'm a wee bit grumpy in this show. I'm hoping for the sake of the stream that I get a green arrow on free hit, because getting reds in your chaps is just absolutely depressing. But let's go for it. I think it's got the potential to be an exciting free hit, because there's lots of kind of slightly differential options with good fixtures. So fingers crossed. Yeah.
Exactly. FPL Stinky, by the way, says 55 minutes of great stuff, but my lasting memory is Andy saying moist. Some people pay a lot of money for that. Nacho, thank you so much for joining us this evening, my man. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
Someone said apron merch needed.
I'd love to do that. Mr. T was on Black Box last night, by the way. He's brilliant in the chats. He's so funny. Good man, Mr. T.
Who's Mr. T? This Mr. T.
Mr. T. Yeah. I mean, I pity the fool that doesn't know Mr. T. Nacho. Nacho. Thank you for joining us this evening.
I'm not going to do an impression. So, pleasure as always. It was obviously a bit of a mad rush today with everything going on, but it feels feels like a good one. It's obviously a busy week of free hit, and I hope we all score hundreds of points.
Fingers crossed. So everybody in the chat and everybody listening after the fact, we do hope your arrows are green this week. Remember, it's a blank game week, but they could be just as much fun as double game week. So we'll be seeing you all next week, and we hope your arrows are green. Thank you. Bye-bye.